Dear class 7th students, we are studying geography, and this is chapter 2nd, environment. In this class we will first introduce the topic. We will know what is the meaning of the environment, what are the components of the environment, what are the threats to the environment, what uh, what we mean by biotic and abiotic components, what is the natural environment. We will know the domains of the environment. We will know the important terms: biosphere, ecosystem, human environment. So first of all, introducing our topic. This picture will help you understanding what we are going to learn. Here in this picture you see buildings surrounded by plants. There you see roads, etc. So we can say whatever we see in our surroundings makes the environment. For example, you see a table, a chair, a school building, a car, parks, newspaper, mountains, rivers, trees, clothes, books. The list will go on and on. In short, we can say whatever is found in our surroundings makes up the environment. So we can now easily define environment, or we now be knowing the meaning of environment. Environment means the surroundings or conditions in which person, animal or plant lives or operates. Or we can say environment is the place, people, things and nature that surround any living organism. It is a combination of natural and human made resources. In short, we have known that environment includes either the natural things or the human made things. Either there are things which are naturally created, or we see things that are human made. So we can say that an environment has uh, three components. The natural components include air, water, land, living things. All these are naturally created, so these uh, form the natural components of the environment. We have the man-made things like buildings, parks, bridges, roads, monuments, industries. These form the man-made components of the environment. We have, so we can just say that there are two components of the environment. One is the natural components, the other is man-made components. Now our next we should understand is what means the what we mean by threat to the environment. Threat to the environment means anything that can disturb our natural environment. Anything that can disturb our natural environment, we call it a threat to the environment. For example, man-made things such as fumes or polluting the air, land is being consumed to build factories, etc. Here in this picture you will see that the factories emit smoke, or fumes that pollute the air. Similarly, we use land for construction purposes. So this all these activities adversely affect the environment. So we call it the threat to the environment. Now we can broadly classify the components of an environment into just two components, that is biotic components and the abiotic components. Biotic components means the living things that an organism is surrounded by, for example plants, animals. Non-living components we call as abiotic components. These will include sun giving us the light, rocks, the clouds which pour down in form of rain. These form the abiotic components. Should be knowing this term, that is the natural environment. Land, water, air, plants and animals make up the natural environment. In other words, we can say that the things, the components of the environment that are naturally created from the natural environment. Here one thing you should note down is that the World Environment Day is celebrated on 5th of June. 5th of June, what day is celebrated on this day is the World Environment Day. You should know, you should remember such things, as these are all often asked in the competitive examination. Now we should know what are the domains of the environment. Domains of the environment include: number first, land; number second, water; number third, air; number fourth, living things. The domain of the earth, the domain of the earth comprising of land is called the lithosphere. The second domain is the domain of water, we call it as hydrosphere. The third domain, that is the domain of air, is called the atmosphere. The fourth domain, that includes living things, this forms the biosphere. So lithosphere is the solid crust or hard top layer of the earth. It is made up of rocks, minerals and covered by the thin layer of soil. Hydrosphere is the water on the earth's surface, which exists in lakes, seas, oceans, rivers, etc. Atmosphere is the thin layer of air that surrounds the earth. It consists of a number of gases, dust and water vapor. Here one thing you should note is that any change in the atmosphere produces change in the weather and climate. Next is the biosphere. It includes the plants and animals. It includes the plants and animals, or we can say the living things which depend upon the other three domains, that is air, water and land. This forms the biosphere. Here the domains of the earth can be understood. Environment is composed of the four domains. The domain of land is called the lithosphere. The domain of water is called the hydrosphere. The domain of air is called the atmosphere. The domain of living things is called the biosphere. This living and non-living things, the domain of living and non-living things is depend upon this lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere. Next term associated with our topic is ecosystem. Here you see grass that grows here is being eaten by grasshopper. Grasshopper in turn is being eaten up by frog. This frog in turn is eaten up by snake. Snake is eaten up by eagle. This forms a food chain, that is, one organism depends upon other organisms for its survival. This system, which is prevalent in the environment, in which one organism depends upon other organism for its survival, is called the ecosystem. Or we can say an ecosystem includes the living things in a given area interacting with each other and with their non-living environment is called the ecosystem. We have a forest ecosystem, we have a desert ecosystem, we have a water ecosystem, etc. Last and most important topic of this environment is the human environment. We have learned that human beings interact with environment on day-to-day basis and modify it. This has to be remembered, and modify it according to their needs. Due to modernization, our needs grow, so we learn new ways to fulfill our needs. In other words, we can say that a human being interacts with environment, interacts with its environment, with the domain of land, the domain of air, the domain of water, in order to fulfill its needs. In this process, it modifies the environment. We can say that to suffice its needs, for example, it needs land for construction of buildings, construction of roads, etc. It carries out different activities utilizing this land, air, water. So we can say that while interacting with the environment, it modifies the environment. We learn to grow crops and create a system wherein transaction takes place, for example barter system, trade and commerce. All these processes, all these activities of man involve modification of the environment. Furthermore, we gather things as per demands. For example, to construct a building, we need raw materials, including rocks and wood. For this, we may look to nature. We can get rocks from the mountains and wood from cutting down trees. So, in short, we can say that human beings depend upon the other components of the environment. In this process, it keeps on modifying the environment. This term we study under the heading the human environment. I think this is sufficient for this chapter. You should learn these new terms which are associated with the environment. Thanks. We will see you in the next lecture. Till then, Allah Hafiz.